It's the day after the national championship, and today we're talking about, is Georgia the next great dynasty? Ralph's going to be joining me here in a second. This is The Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
And welcome in. My name is Bryce Koon. We're bringing in Ralph Leary as well. Ralph is he's there. He's sporting the Crowded Booth merch. Ralph, how you doing on this fine Tuesday afternoon?
Man, it is good to be back. Happy 2023.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. I mean, besides your former job podcast that we used to do, I used to help out in the background. That was the last time I've actually been on the show. In quite a while. I've been busy, and you have too.
We have too, indeed. You can tell little purple's bleeding through underneath the Crowded Booth hoodie. Ralph's got on the Crowded Booth sweatshirt. Well, go ahead.
Do not have any purple under me.
Oh, that's sad. That's okay. Hey, let's talk a little bit about this. Georgia wins the national championship, and Ralph, we were watching it together. Not only did they win it, but they won it in dominating fashion. The largest margin of victory, I think it's ever in the national championship game, 58 points. So when you look at this, real quickly, can you recap for me kind of what your takeaways from this game were? And then we'll get into the conversation about, is Georgia the next great dynasty in college football?
Well, yeah, everyone was saying that TCU was going to run the ball really well. They were going to, give Georgia some struggle. It was going to be a high-scoring game. We all thought it was going to be a high-scoring game. We all thought it'd be kind of like a 45.
Took the over.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I took the over. And
it still hit.
Yeah, Georgia did it by himself. It just shows you the difference between, a good overall team in TCU versus a good overall team with nothing but insane athletes. And Georgia was just a better team overall. They had the better athletes. I'm not going to say better coach. I think Kirby's one of the best coaches in the league. Sonny Dykes is not a bad coach.
No, yeah.
Sonny Dykes got this team from 5-7 to 13-2 into a national championship game in 1 year. You're not a bad coach, and they're not a bad team. I think TCU was outmatched. It's hard to beat a team that's just so good year in, year. I mean, it has been good in the past 3 years, honestly, in my opinion. A team it's full of good storylines. Obviously, Stetson. I'm thank God he's done. I'm honestly tired of hearing about it.
Yeah, it's been beaten to a pulp.
If you didn't know, Stetson's a walk-on. If you didn't know, you should know. If you didn't know, where have you been the past 2 years?
If you don't know, just wait till Disney makes the movie here in about 5 to 10 years.
I saw that and someone said, "Who should play Stetson in his movie?" And someone said Matthew McConaughey. I'm like, well, that doesn't work.
Well, I was on a show last night, pregame show, and the person said that I should play Stetson Bennett.
They don't know your acting skills very well, Bryce.
Yeah, they don't know it. They don't know it. I can't do those things. Now, Ralph, you're exactly right. I mean, this game went just the opposite of what you and I thought. I mean, I thought that Georgia would win this game, not in the fashion that they did on Monday night. But when you look at what Kirby was able to do, and it's one thing that a lot of people have said about Nick Saban in the sense of convincing his team that they were slighted, convincing his team they were the underdogs. I mean, look, people, you've harped on it all day. Who said this team was going 7-5? That's what Nolan Smith said post game. I don't know, but what I do think is incredible is to see how Kirby Smart kept them focused. Because look, it's when you've done what they've done the past 2 years. I think they're 29-1 in the last 2 years. I mean, it's really incredible to see, and it's also incredible, in my opinion, Ralph, to see the fact that they haven't really lost focus. They haven't. I mean, really, outside of the Missouri game this past year, Kentucky was a little iffy. Outside of that, the Kent State game, this is a team that really has had everything well in hand. It feels like the whole time. So I think that speaks to the volume of the coaching. You talked about Kirby Smart being one of the best coaches. I mean, look, it's Georgia's on top of the college football world right now. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. A lot of people talk about should Alabama been in. That might be a whole other episode. But I don't think so. But this is about Georgia in this sense. But Ralph, I mean, have they arrived? Is this the next college football dynasty in your opinion? We talked about Alabama over the past decade. Look, we're talking with our good friend Palmer Toms, and he said, look, it wouldn't surprise me if this team was in the playoff next year. Now, a lot of that's due to their schedule, but also, I mean, it's still a really talented team, and it's not just this is no longer a one-hit wonder. The rumors of that, the thought of that are now gone.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think what David Pollack said yesterday before the game was true. Georgia's on top of the college football right now, and it's true. I mean, Kirby's got the best recruiting classes coming in. He's got, I mean, top 5, JUCO, just transfer portal. He's killing it there, and he's getting to the point where he's having too much talent, and it's not a bad thing. It's that there's so much talent rolling in. They don't, it's like we're talking about every year with Alabama. They've never had to reset. It's a reload, and that's what Georgia's doing now. They're not resetting. They're just reloading every year now. And so the question is, everyone's like, well, Georgia's quarterback next year. I don't care who it's going to be. They're still going to be good. You could put a guy in there who is 5'10", 5'11".
They did
195 pounds, who was a walk-on, and he won 2 national champipionships.
Imagine what they do when they get a 4 or 5 star there.
They did do that. So it doesn't matter who plays quarterback for him because it's a situation. Not situation. It's a gear. I mean, he's a gear. He's everything rolling perfectly. He's not doing anything too much. That's what Stetson did. Stetson didn't do a lot of things too much. He just kind of did his own thing.
He played within himself.
Exactly. You don't have to go big or go home here. Hell, I mean,
and what was impressive is the fact that he did in the last 2 games. I mean, he was dominant, but you don't have to be. And so I think for next year, if it's a Carson back, if it's a Brock Vandegrift or a Gunnar Stockton, any of those guys that steps in, or if they decide to go the transfer portal route, who knows? If it is that, Ralph, this team is in good hands. You talked about the talent. I talked about the skill position guys. I mean, look, Ralph, they added 2 of the better. I think it's safe to say this: 2 of the better receivers in the SEC. The kid from Missouri and then Ron Thomas from Mississippi State. I mean, when you add in those 2 guys and you get to keep 80 Bowers, Ralph, it truly doesn't feel like this offense is slowing down anytime soon, especially with Todd Monken pretty safely going to be the offensive coordinator next year. I mean, I think it's safe to say this offense is only going to continue to get better. Branson Robinson is going to get a lot more touches next year. Dejon Edwards. I mean, it's going to be you lose a guy like Kenny McIntosh, but Kendall Milton can come back. I think he is coming back. I think he's returning. So, it's what you said, Ralph. They reload. But when you talk about the next great dynasty, look, I mean, Kirby Smart said either, I think it was or last night or to this morning, kind of in it was a post-game press conference, and he talked about how he doesn't want to talk about a three-peat. But I think that we have to have the conversation that this team, this program is really set up from a financial standpoint, from a facility standpoint, from a staff standpoint. I mean, Ralph, they've reached the point where you can plug and play coaches. And I think that's the biggest tell sign of what a dynasty can be, when you can just elevate guys from your staff. Now, look, fans who will regretfully watch this channel thinking they're getting a Georgia Tech episode, Buster Faulkner's going to Georgia Tech to be the offensive coordinator. Who do they elevate into that role? Who kind of takes over that liaison? I don't know if it's big of a loss for Georgia, as other people might think, because you still have Todd Monken. But defensively, I mean, look, they lost Dan Lanning, who was really, really good and had a really good season at Oregon. They put in Glenn Schumann and Will Muschamp as co-DCs. And so that's the biggest time for me, is I think this team is entering the dynasty form. No, I mean, I think you're entering the dynasty territory because my biggest tell sign is you have coaches that are just being elevated into spots, and no one's really skipping a beat.
Right. And I think you're exactly right. I mean, look at Dan Lanning, his first year at Oregon. I mean, he just killed it. I mean, he had a few games where he lost. They could have probably won. I mean, the first game of the year was against Georgia. I mean, you're playing a really good Georgia team.
And your first game is as the head coach of a program.
Yeah, in the first game is basically a home game for Georgia. I mean, you're playing in Atlanta. You have a new quarterback in your own system. Your first real game coaching, and it didn't go well. But they did well the rest of the season. And like you said, they're going to keep adding coaches in and keep moving guys out. It's just how it's going to be. Todd Monken can go get a job anywhere he wants to right now. if he wanted to. But
Almost got the Purdue job.
As our friend Palmer said, he got the bag this past year, and he should continue to get it because he's one of the best play callers in college football right now. And I think I saw on Twitter last night, it said, this game is really exciting to watch because Todd Monken gets to unload the clip here. He gets to unload everything he's been holding on to this whole season because he didn't have to unleash anything because they just beat you simply. Mm-hmm. They don't run trick plays. They don't run different routes all the time. They run the same plays, same formations. And they beat you straight up. That's how Georgia's been so good for the past few years.
Yeah, another sign, Ralph, is I think the development aspect. I tweeted out last night. Javon Buller was a 3-star, and this is a kid who is the defensive MVP of the semifinal game and the defensive MVP of the championship game. He was a 3-star. Kenny McIntosh was rated by certain outlets as a 3-star. Ralph, he's been one of the more dynamic, underrated backs in the country, in my opinion. His ability to catch the ball out of the backfield and run the ball in between the tackles. Lad McConkey, A.D. Mitchell. I mean, look, it's one thing, and teams like to say this, and opposing fans like to say this, well, it's easy to do it when you have 5-star players. And yes, they have 5-star players. But the development and what I think makes the difference between the top 15 teams that can, there's probably like 15 teams that can realistically get 5 stars, big group of them each year. The difference between a national championship contender and those top 15 is the ability to develop the 3 and 4 stars and elevate them to play like 5 stars. So look, stars do matter, but development does too, Ralph. And I think that Georgia right now is the epitome of showing that development does matter because you have to have a complete, 85 scholarship players you get? You got to have every single guy that can be ready to go and play at a high level. And right now, Georgia, I mean, it's plug and play. You and I were watching the defense. I mean, it's scary. I mean, Jalen Carter comes out, Bear Alexander, guy we know and we've covered, Michael Williams, Marvin Jones Jr. I mean, it's ridiculous to see how good and how deep this team is, and give credit to the staff for developing them.
I was just looking at something that I was trying to, just see what your statement was about. There's probably 15 schools that can actually get a 5-star. There's 14 right now that have a 5-star. That's pretty good. Pretty good job there, Bryce. Props to you there.
Pretty good. But it says is out of those 14 teams, the development aspect is what I think takes it to the next level and says this is a true championship contender.
I mean, like you said, Michael Williams. I'm gonna preach on him because he is from here. We got to talk to him a little bit last year. His dad's awesome. He keeps up with everything. He's a great guy. Michael Williams is one of those guys that, with some more development, some more work, probably a little bit more room in the weight room. He looks like an undersized DN, but he's so good with his hands, such good with first step, and that's just with months and months of work, with these guys and working with probably Nolan Smith. Exactly. I mean, Nolan Smith probably helped him out a lot with this game. I mean, you learn from these guys, you learn from these coaches, and they help you get better. That's just how football works. But if you actually listen to what they say and you actually learn from them and they actually help you get better, I mean, you see it. Georgia does it the best. I mean, I honestly believe it. I mean, you look at some of these guys in the NFL these days. I mean, some of the guys like Alabama. Alabama, to me, is defensive back because they put out some of the best defensive backs year in, year out. Nick Saban is probably, to me, the one of the best defensive backs coaches in the country. And people think, Saban doesn't coach defensive backs. Yes, he does. He's a very good defensive backs coach. That is his one thing he keeps under wrap. It'll never change is that he's a DB coach at all times.
Well, Ralph, I have to say, if I have any of my new audience that comes in here, they're going to argue that LSU might be DBU, and they've had some talented ones as well. Ralph, I wanted to kind of end with this. Javon Bullard was asked the question, when you hear the words Dynasty, and I'm going to read this quote, with Georgia football, do you think that fit this program now? That's what he said. He goes, just growing up as a kid from the state of Georgia, playing for this university, playing for your hometown team, essentially, it's special. So the word Dynasty, it's something that we're building together, and that's something that was built before us. Kirby followed that up, Ralph, and he mentioned a couple of players. Jamari Sawyer, who plays for the Rams, who play in SoFi Stadium. Nakobe Dean, who was at the game last night that our friend Palmer Tom's got Palmer got his new profile picture, getting a video of that. And then a guy like Monty Rice that played for the Titans the other night, didn't get to win a championship, but Kirby talked about it. He goes, look, these guys sacrificed everything for the program, and even that team back in 2018 that didn't get a chance to win one, I tell them all the time they're a part of this because they created the foundation. Ralph, it reminds me a lot of what the early Nick Saban teams, the first couple ones that won the championship. I'll even say this. It reminds me of the, I think I mentioned this, like the Taj Boyds, the guys who never got to see a championship at Clemson, but help establish the culture under Dabo Swinney. So, I mean, I don't know about you. I think Georgia's well on their way to being at least at the top of college football for the next couple of years. And it really feels like it's one of those things where Georgia and Kirby Smart, I mean, as long as Smart's at the helm, and look, he's not a guy that is going to go to the NFL. That's just my opinion. Like this is the next Nick Saban-esque type of role where you'll hear rumors about it, but man, this is his alma mater. He's raising his kids in Athens, and I don't know, man. It just feels like Georgia's going to be on top of the world for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly there. I mean, you're going to hear NFL probably in the next 5 or 6 years. They'll probably say, "Oh, Kirby's taking calls from the NFL." I doubt he's taking calls. I mean, he's too worried about everything else going on. John Harbaugh the same way. John or Jim?
John's in the NFL. Jim is at Michigan.
Jim Harbaugh is not going to the NFL right now. I can promise you that. I think he loves Michigan too much. He's doing incredible there in the first place. But Kirby is building what you talk about as a dynasty. I really think he is. He is. It's year in year out. They get better athletes and guys. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a player at Georgia that I've like sat there and said, "I can't stand them." But because they're so good, Nolan Smith, he didn't get play last 2 games.
Great guy, great kid,
great guy. I mean, you watch him. I mean, he's not on the sideline moping. He's on the sideline excited, cheering on his team. He's almost on the field every play, trying to he's excited. But those are the guys that he could have went and draft last year, probably been a 2nd or 3rd round pick, maybe a 1st round, maybe like in the draft. But
it speaks to the culture.
Yeah, he wanted to come back. He wanted to run in the back. That's what he said. So that shows you what Kirby's building there, what he's built there so far. I mean, he's going to continue to do this year in year out. And so the more players he gets in there, the guys that he wants, the more this team's going to be dominant.
Yeah, the more the team's going to be dominant. And Ralph, I'm going to go ahead and hold you to that. The odds for Jim Harbaugh's next 2023 team is plus 225 to the Denver Broncos, plus 275 to the Wolverines of Michigan. So, we'll see. We'll see indeed. Ralph, appreciate you as always. We're going to be talking who's going to be playing shortstop for the Atlanta Braves later this week. And that'll be a fun conversation that we'll get to. But Ralph, appreciate it as always. And Georgia wins 65-7, back-to-back national championships. I think just the 5th team since the 30s to do it. The last one was Alabama in 2011, 2012. And you know who the defensive coordinator was then? Mr. Kirby Smart. So he knows something about it. Hey, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Make sure to sign up today at thecrowdedbooth.com. You can get all of these shows directly to your inbox right there. Sign it up completely free. And make sure to follow us on social media at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Crowded Booth. He's Ralph Leary. My name is Bryce Koon. We'll see you next time here on The Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. Coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.